Welcome to the Connie G Show, everybody. My name is Conrad, and how are you, buddy? I got today is the 21st of September, and 98 degrees out. Great band again today. So I got a piece of cheesy rice stuck in my tooth right now, or one like in a either in a cavity or in a crack. I can't tell if it's in the flossy part or in the I don't know, pool, the tooth pool that people have, or I have. But anyways, cheesy rice is pretty good, dude. I just walked out here. It's like 6 in the evening here in Prague, Oklahoma. Um, had kind of a good day, I guess. Been in a weird mood all day, but that's normal, I think, for me. It's normal to be abnormal, I think is the thing. So anyways, for dinner, I thought we were going to have leftovers because a couple nights ago, my lovely bride made pork chops and or pork steak and I think one sirloin steak. And she did them on the oven, but they were all really good, and I sliced them real thin, and then Jonah and I made tacos out of them, kind of like fajita tacos, and we still have that left over. And then last night when I was out here doing this, she was in there making spaghetti, and so walked in, and that's Rowan's favorite is spaghetti, and there's leftovers of both these things now. And then she texted me today. She's like, "I'm gonna make some baked chicken before church." And I was like, "There you go." I mean, okay. I didn't really care because I felt like there's plenty of food to eat, but so she baked some chicken legs and or chicken thighs, whatever. I don't know if chickens have legs, but they're not. You know what I'm saying? Like drumsticks. She baked chicken drumsticks. I don't know. That's a thigh. I feel like that's a thigh. They cut it off at the knee, basically. You don't get that calf, that chicken calf. That's the good stuff. And she baked them, but on the oven she made that cheesy rice. You can buy this stuff in a bag, like it's an go down the aisle in your grocery store where usually where the seasonings are, and then also like your hamburger helpers and your stuff like that. You're gonna find this bag of cheesy rice. They have like all different kinds, Cajun seasoned rice or herbs or garlic, or much like if you buy instant mashed potatoes. There's just a terrific amount of dollar pouches that will pretty much, it's the same stuff that we send overseas to all the distendants out there, all the people out there with the distended bellies that need food because they don't have any agriculture or infrastructure they don't have a damn grocery store. So America, instead of giving them a grocery store and teaching them, we just send them, big old bags of cheesy rice and peanut butter. That's what we do to fix the problem. Because, like, a lot of times, if you're answering the phone for America, most of the time it's not China, and it's not England, and it's not India. It's like Uganda. You know what I mean? It's just some sort of poor, out in the jungle country or out in the desert country. And they're just calling to be like, "Hey, is this America?" And whoever answers like, "Yeah, this is America." And, "Hey, can you send us some food?" And we're like, "I guess we just did, you know." They're like, "Yeah, we ran out." And so we send them the rice that I ate for dinner. So we'll, as Americans, we'll package it up and sell it for $1 to each other. And then what we'll also do is send it overseas to the hungry nations that need it. And, I kind of stayed away from it for about probably 15 years of my life, maybe longer, maybe 20. Because growing up, my mom um, as great as she was at having children, and arguably you could even say she was really great at raising them. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if she got lucky or if God raised us. A lot of that's faith, a faith-based raising, because you kind of notice things as you get older, and you're like, how can you let that happen? That kind of thing. So, but none of us, we're all still here. All 8 of us, all 7 siblings of mine and myself, were able to make it, and that's due in large part to her efforts as a mother and my dad for sure as the anchor. So I don't know, but I know one thing is I grew up with somebody that did not know how to cook at all, and it's not her fault. I mean, it is. Eventually, it becomes your fault. Like there's a part where you're raised in a, your mom's always cooking and she's in the kitchen and you pick it up. That's not my grandma. My mother's mother is like, she is depression. She's got a depression palate, depression era palate. She will eat. She'll watch you scrape something off a side. She'll eat it. She does not have. She's not a germaphobe by any means, but she also like flavors and stuff. Doesn't. You could take her to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, or you could take her to Burger King, and you could take you could order a Whopper, and pull the buns off, and pull all the toppings off, and set the crappy patty right there on the plate, and then right next to it have a perfectly on a heated plate Ruth's Chris steak, cooked medium rare, and she would use her fork and knife and cut both a bite of each of those off, and take a bite, and she wouldn't notice any difference. She would say, "Oh, those are both really good." And then she raised my mom. Kind of she raised my mom. My mom kind of had to fend for herself. But my mom never took an interest in getting better at cooking. That's the thing that is kind of sad when people, food is such. What do you got? You got sleeping, you got being awake, and you got eating. You know what I mean? Maybe going to the bathroom. Those are things that are universal that we all do. You have to do, or you die. And to not make like the best sleep, like people that have to sleep on, beds like I do, or that's why people invest so much in their sleep. Like that's why you always hear commercials like, "Are you getting a bad night's sleep?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, I think I am. I think I am." And that's why. Because that's a significant part of your day is sleeping. And so if you're not rested, you feel lethargic and it affects the rest of your day. And because typically it's your diet that is actually causing that lethargy, but you don't want to change your diet, you think, well, maybe I can buy a better mattress or buy a supplement or smoke drug or whatever I have to do, and that's going to help me rest better. When it's probably a combination of everything, and probably none of it has to do with taking a supplement. Usually it's probably, your diet, your exercise, your activity throughout the day, and that we're humans and we're not meant to do what most of us do, which is sit in a air-conditioned, with no sunlight area and look at a screen like I'm looking at here. That's what most people do in America, and so then they're like, I don't know why I can't sleep. It's like, because you're doing something that's like anti-human, If you go out and just do anything in the sun and get that sun vitamin on you, dude, like, you don't have to make money to sleep good, is what I'm saying. You go over to the desert, the Africa desert country, you got a bunch of people that they might have done nothing, laid in the sand all day, with fishing. The big old wooden pole there, and they might be them dudes that got the big hoops in their ears, or that big long ringed. Ever seen the people that put the rings around their neck? They get that huge ass long neck. And those dudes might just be sitting there, one leg over the other, leaning back on one arm with a fishing pole, And that's what they did all day, but they're exhausted when they get home. It's because the sun takes it out of you. You know? The sun is powered by human energy. And I think that what we do is we sit in front of a screen all day and we don't get any of that. We don't get that sucked out of us, and then we're on a screen when we get home, and then it's like it's time to settle down for rest, and we're like, what do you mean? I have not, my heart rate has not went over 120 today. Like, settle down from what, So, but if you're not going to exercise, you still got to eat decently, or I don't even care if people eat bad. I actually understand it. Most of the time, the best food is the worst for you. So I'm on board with it, but I do not understand people who don't enjoy eating good food. Like, it doesn't mean anything to them. And that was what I was raised in. And so I was lucky enough to find a beautiful bride that also enjoys good food, and she comes from a mother who is constantly exploring recipes. They're constantly cooking something up in the kitchen. If I go to my in-laws, my mother-in-law will be like, "Hey, I made you I made a bunch of sourdough pizzas. I'm trying to do this new thing with sourdough, and I'm making a crust out of sourdough, and I made my own sauce, and I don't know if it's any good." And of course it's great because it's all grown. She grows it, It's like we used some of the beef from the cattle that we just grew. Everything's fresh, farm to table, and she knows how to season it and cook it good. I go over there. We did bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers from the jalapenos I grew in the garden. And I made my own cream cheese. I learned a recipe. I'm making my own cream cheese. And it's like, you think it's any good? It's like, of course, it's the greatest thing ever. It is the greatest thing ever. Now, if you gave it to my mom, she'd be like, whatever. I prefer Sonic's. I prefer Sonic's jalapeno popper. And she'll tell that to people. And people will be insulted by it, but they don't know her background. Her background is bird. You know what I mean? Her background is eating like a bird. And so would you go out and ask one of those scavengers? My grandma Betty is like a vulture. Would you go ask a vulture if your egg salad recipe is good? And the vulture looks up as it's eating a dead, armadillo carcass in the middle of the road. Would you want that opinion? Or would you be like, oh, this person probably doesn't know what good food is or care. Well, maybe I shouldn't ask a vulture. And that's what it's like asking my mom and my grandma, her mother. So it's what I'm getting to is there was a trauma that was done to me as a youth that I didn't even realize was being done to me. Meaning I was being fed as if I was one of the descendants in one of these just really unfortunate underdeveloped parts of the world. These people don't have a choice. You don't just get born and be like, hey, we should start raising hogs and selling pork to the community. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't even know what a pig is, maybe. You don't have a farm and you don't have any background in any of that. You don't even know it exists. So you just keep dipping your dirty hand into that peanut butter that the American government sends you, and you eat that cheesy rice. And that's what sustains you until you do spear a zebra and try to keep it from going rancid. You eat the good part before it goes rancid. But there's no seasonings. There's no Guy Fieri, going to diners, drive-ins, and dives Uganda. You don't know what you're doing when you cook that zebra, and it's tough, and it's not even as good as the rice America sent you. And that's how these people live. And that's how I lived my whole childhood. Unknowing. And so the day that I said I do, the day that I married my wife, I told her, I don't want to eat like that. If we're going to cook dinner, we're better cooks than this. We can cook. Let's do it. And she was all for it. And so, but there's there's an anchor. There is a imprint on my psyche that packaged food, it's in my genetics. The deliciousness of a highly processed prepackaged food is genetically woven into my DNA. And so as long as I avoided it, it was fine, like the hamburger helpers of the world. You know how many times growing up I had hamburger helper? Every time. It wasn't even a helper anymore. He was a paid employee. Hamburger paid employee is what we would call him. That glove was a fixture in our family growing up. It meant a lot to us. Excuse me. Got a booger stuck in my throat. Or maybe that rice lodged loose one of my teeth. What I'm getting at is, even though we avoided the second tier food throughout my marriage and as we've raised our kids, for the most part, now it becomes almost a novelty. You know what I mean? Now it becomes like a frozen pizza night or a hamburger helper night, which we haven't had that in years. We do a frozen pizza night maybe once every couple weeks. And I love frozen pizza. There's no better pizza, in my opinion. And it's because of the highly processed nature of it that you can't find that in a fresh pizza. Take me to Italy, I'd be like, this is great. This is really good. And I can kind of see what you guys are doing here, making it kind of fresh and stuff. Doesn't taste processed, though. Doesn't taste like you could freeze this and keep it in your freezer for about 6 or 7 months and then eat it and have a great... Doesn't taste like that. And that's what I like, because that's ingrained in me genetically. And so as we've... as regular fitness routine and that aspiration of health has become more and more part of my life and my wife's, I feel almost more comfortable allowing a cheat day to come in, a cheat day where we have the cheesy rice. And tonight, when she made it, it's like, that's really great rice. I get that there's no nutritional value to it. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, they put 7 grams of protein in it, whatever. Clearly it's not good for you, because if it was, it wouldn't taste so good and be so dang easy to make. It's bad for you, but I think it's good to have that. I think it's good to have a mixture. You don't want to be, it's always good to be in the middle, I think. In almost every aspect, to just be able to understand, don't close it off. If somebody tells you that, if you talk to a recent immigrant or something that just got back from Martha's Vineyard, and they say it was beautiful there, take their word for it. Don't be jelly. I'm sure it is. I know it's overpriced, of course, but that's fine. That's their world. That's their bubble. And you can hate that it exists. You can think that it's a waste of resources and money, and it is. It absolutely is. And then that wealth is passed down, through the family and split up and then manipulated and reused and all this different stuff. And all that's true. And it's always by people that will always put their thumb on people like me. I know. But that's their life. That's what they do. I can't tell them not to be that, just like I can't tell Grandma Betty to stop eating that armadillo off the road. That's who they are. And people can change. You can be like me and be like, I was raised on eating armadillo road, and I've evolved. I won't eat that every night. I won't do it if it's the primary meal. But as a side dish, to have a delicious over-processed treat, of course, I will give in on that. Of course there's a deliciousness factor that I'm of an armadillo on the road. And of course there's something good about Martha's Vineyard. Sure. And I hope those kids had the time of their lives up there. Those ones that the governor of Florida sent. I hope that those people treated those people good, and I hope a lot of them get to stay. You know, I do. And I don't think I'll ever get there. I'm not 40 yet. I'm getting close to being 40 years old. And I know that my dad is older than me. That's obvious. And he's never been. And I know my grandpa's even older than both of us. And he's never been. It's kind of like going to college, dude. Sometimes you don't go. And sometimes you have a kid and they do. Does that make your kid better than you? Yes. In some ways. But in other ways it doesn't. In other ways it doesn't. So, anyways, we had cheesy rice for dinner, and it stuck in my teeth, is what I was saying with that. It was good, though. It's my sister's birthday. I have 4 sisters. One of them had a birthday today. And so, if you're listening, happy birthday. I love you very much, and I'm proud of you, and I'm amazed that you do the things that you do. And she raises 4 kids of her own, which is amazing to me. So that's great. She runs her own business. She runs the house. She runs all that. So she's pretty incredible. And it's her birthday. What is that, a tick? It's hard to tell. So I almost got a bowl cut today. I almost went and got a haircut and said to bowl it out, dude. I said, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if it's long enough. If you're watching on YouTube on Con Radio, this is the Connie G Show. It is exclusively on YouTube on Con Radio's YouTube channel. So you can watch this where I'm combing through my hair if you want to. Or if you just want to listen, you can listen on Con Radio. I put the Connie G Show there. I put the OK Taco Show there. I put those guys from Wichita there. It's all on Con Radio. But I also realize that it's confusing, so if you just want to listen to the Connie G Show, it's on iTunes and Spotify. If you just want to listen to the OK Taco Show, it's going to be on iTunes and Spotify too for you to find. And if you just want to listen to those guys from Wichita, right now it's just on Con Radio. But we also have a Patreon, Con Radio Patreon, where you'll get all the back episodes of different shows, and I got a lot of work to do on figuring out how I want that to kind of be set up moving forward, because there's like thousands of episodes that we've done through different projects. So, anyways, you can always be aware of anything new that we're doing even if you just subscribe to the free side of the Patreon. But if you want to help us out, consider supporting the show by pledging $5 a month on Patreon. So the big news of the day, I guess, is that the Federal Reserve and their wisdom decided to raise the interest rates to fight inflation. And people are like, it's so weird to me that people are looking for reasons why we have inflation. I don't understand that at all. Guys, we shut down the country for at least a year, maybe longer, and then we took out these massive stimulus packages, gave a bunch of people a bunch of money, gave a bunch of businesses a bunch of money, paid for a bunch of crap that we don't even know if it does anything, whether it be a warp speed vaccine or just information on getting vaccinated or whatever we decided to fill up a railroad car filled with unearned money that won't be repaid by the efforts of us, because we're going to shut us down, and then ship that money to wherever it goes on a bunch of crap that's researched, and we don't know how it's going to work. And it's like, well, a couple of years from now, we might have a lot of inflation, and people are like, oh, no, we'll figure it out before then. They can't spend like $7 trillion and be like, because that's what's going to happen. Everything goes up to try to pay for our response to the past, I guess. So, I don't know. But Shannon and I are trying to buy this building, and we had an offer in. It's like a back and forth. And so I try to do my due diligence to not be taken advantage of by, and I hate it. I just want to get the building, and because it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does and it doesn't, as far as the cost of it and the payment and all. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. I got to pay it if I want it, and I think it's the perfect spot, and I think it can be something really incredible. So that's when it's like it doesn't. But you don't want to be taken advantage of, and you don't want to feel like you haven't done this before, even if you haven't. And so you try to put yourself out there in a way that's like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing, even though you don't. And then it's just so this is his game. And so anyways, after the inspections and all this, we threw out a number, and it was immediately like, no, we can't do that, even though the number I threw out was based on their advice. And but ultimately they threw out finally it goes back and forth like that a couple times, and then you get to somewhere in the middle, like always. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I said that on Friday. That's perfect. We'll do that. I don't know what closing costs are. Maybe you guys could help us out with that. I haven't heard back on that. But as far as the offer, yeah, dude, let's do it. And so we've been waiting, but so I told Shannon, it's like they're not going to say anything until today, because we got to find out what the interest rate, which is almost very irritating, because they have all the paperwork done for us. Again, they are the seller and they are the lender. So to hold off on us a couple days just to find out, oh, we got to raise the. They could have had this closed Monday. But now we wait till today. We find out that the interest rate goes up 0.75%, and hey, we can close next week. I get that text today. Close next Wednesday. So it's good news that it's frightening, but we all, at least to me, I can't speak. It's exciting but also frightening, all that stuff. Because now it's like, it's like anything else. You can sit there and talk, but once you have to actually do it, and if you're intelligent and smart, you know everything that's got to. I mean, even at the forefront of all of these obstacles that are ahead of you. Once we sign those papers and get the keys and open that door, and it's just me and Shannon in there, and it's like, what do we do? And all of that crap is what's been going through our heads for 2 months. But you also know that there's the unexpected stuff that you don't know yet, but you also prepare yourself for it mentally. And then you also know that there's unexpected good stuff too. So it's just a roller coaster, But we have a date, so that's good. It's a good thing. It was a good day for that. We'll close next week. We'll get our place, and I don't know what all will be changing after that. Just a lot. I know that. And so there is no balance in nature gummy that you can take to succeed in what we're doing in a restaurant. And even if there's a familiarity with our brand, which there is in the area, and a familiarity with that location being that, it's not out of the ordinary. It was that, you know what I mean? And then so you mix the two. There's a perfect combination of it being really successful, but that brings its own problems of just supplies and inventory and going through it and staffing if it's required. How busy are you going to be? How busy can we be with just us two? And what's the cutoff point? And is the return on having somebody else there worth, or do you just try to minimize the, like, you almost get you're the conductor of it. You almost get to tailor it your way if you do it right. So, but anyways, I could do a show where I just go from thought to thought on everything that needs to be done. And it would last until somebody woke me up. You know what I mean? It would just last. Because that's how much stuff goes through your brain when you're taking on something like this. And especially when you're taking on something and you're trying to set it up in a certain way. And all of it's in my head. None of it is, it's all in my head, And I've told Shannon, I want him to be on. It was the same way with the trailer, When I can explain to him my vision in a way that I can tell he sees it. And I'm talking about even in little things, like this is how it should work when the customer orders. You know what I mean? Like, envision it. We need to get it this way if it's not like this. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, he's very good at following my train of thought and knowing what I'm talking about. And so, other than him, I don't, nobody else, I can't even explain to anybody what it is because they're lost. I could walk you through the front door. I could tell you exactly what it's going to look like. I could tell you what the outside's going to look like when you pull up. I could tell you all that stuff. But you'll be lost on the first part. So, that's how much there is to do. And nobody understands it. Nobody gets it in the sense of other than, I think my wife gets it. I think that my dad is starting to understand it. I think he understands it quite a bit, actually. But I don't know if anybody realizes the amount of advertising and effort that we put into the trailer over the past couple years, and that has given us some sort of people know about us in this area, and they know good things about us, which is what you want. And when you tell people back home, they don't think anybody's ever eaten at our trailer, so they don't understand why we would do that. And you can try to be like we do. You try to take your ego out of it for a second, and just be like, well, we're doing it because it's really hard to serve people when it's 100 degrees out of a trailer that's a mirror. They don't want to stand there in front of a mirror and be baked. So that's why we're doing it. And they're like, oh, that makes sense, kind of, but are you sure? It's like, and that wasn't even the reason. We were just trying to find one that they would understand. The reason is that's going to be freaking awesome. I mean, it's going to be awesome. And that's what, if we can get it to what it is in my head, and I can put this into Shannon's head, and I think I got it there, and we're on the same, and then he goes at me with, hey, we should do this. This has to happen. And it's like, yes, and then I think, okay, that's a good idea, and that's how we can incorporate and marry these two things together. And yes. So it will be awesome. But the biggest thing that I'm trying to do is something that, my dad failed at, kind of. And that failure ultimately was probably the marriage, really, that split everything up. Because he was trying to create with his children something that he could leave and it could stay, because the person that he left it to, the succession of it, would have worked, and maybe had already been running that way even when he was there. So that's what it's hard to do. I can't have a trailer and pull it around, and you can't expect anybody to do it for nothing. You know what I mean? You can't build it. You could build it to where, like, let's go buy 4 more Airstreams. Let's do that. You don't want that headache. It's out of your control way too much, and there's way too many factors, and there's way too much knowledge that you have to have in so many different aspects that have nothing to do with cooking food or serving people when it comes to just being a mechanic and traveling with this stuff. So by having this restaurant, there might be a way that you can create systems that are teachable, that are replicatable, to where there is this growth thing if you build it the correct way. And that's the big thought. That's a bigger thought and that's all hinges on the way you start, and then there's ways you can fix your screw ups as you start, because you're going to screw up, but you have to go into the building side of it not as, this is something that I think can make money for Shannon and I, or my family. For me, this could be a job. You have to almost go into it not thinking that. That's a byproduct of what you're actually thinking. What you're actually thinking is, how can I make this thing be a place that is... My dad did it with the company. I mean, to have I don't even know, like an ace in the pocket, whatever that is. To have an ace in the hole, to have something to fall back on, like for a lot of other people, not him. He was going to be there, and I'm here, I'm doing this. But he added a lot of stuff, knowing, throughout the history of his companies, knowing that there were people that at certain times in their lives needed some extra money, needed a job, needed a plate. And the amount of times people have walked in and out of his world with no questions asked coming in and no questions asked going out. You created this environment that people can always count that you'll be there to help them. But they'll have to work for it, but it's fun, or it's loving, or whatever it is. So he did build that, but he also never built it in a way to where he can be not involved. And he kind of did with me, but it's like, dude, I can't be involved in between your guys' stuff. When that was all going down, I can't do it anymore. And so that kind of threw it all. And then I didn't want to build that. I just didn't want to build that for Jonah. I could have with my thing. I did it kind of in the beginning. When Shannon's like, hey man, I need more than a day. I could work as, it's like, all right, well, we'll go find more stuff. We'll go do more stuff. And we did. We grew that. My little company, my little mowing, we were doing all kinds of stuff those first few years. Then when he had to leave and it's just me and I'm doing it after work, it's like, oh, I gotta cut this, give this away to people, because I didn't need it. I didn't want to build that. I want to go build something on my own. And I want to do it with one person that's, if I have to have somebody, there's only one person. There's probably 2. I would trust that if my dad's, I want to be involved. Like, yeah, well, you're in. Let's do it. But I don't have a lot other than Shannon, as far as that I would trust with my vision. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And a lot of it's his. But his is, he's older than me. That's one thing. And I don't know. We have to we come from different angles on that. it's a fun place, and I think it can work. But my thing is, I want to go into it with it is got the opportunity to be multiplied, to be bigger, to be a system. And now, the only way that that can work is if the system keeps the foundation. And the foundation is the kind of effort that somebody like Shannon or somebody like I would give to something. So it has to be the right person that's willing to bet on themselves to do this, but it's been done before. It's not like it hasn't been done before, clearly. That's why there are these big, chains, because that's what it is. But it's fun. I will say that. The thought process is fun. The little tricks you play in your head that nobody even knows is happening is fun. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, next week is that. So today it was a weird day because I got that text, and a few months ago I bought Casey's. Casey was trying to make some extra money or do something. He's selling his mom's jet ski for her, and I seen it and I was like, we used to have one just like it, and I was like, dude, I'll buy it, and it's kind of a gift for the family. My dad's always had them, and he doesn't even ride them. You know what I mean? He doesn't care. My grandpa loves his, and it's fun to be with him, an 80-year-old man cruising across some sort of lake once a year. You know what I'm saying? So it is fun in that sense. But so we bought it, and then we took it to this guy that my dad knows, and they worked on basically fuel issues. It just sat there for 4 years with fuel in it, rotting everything out. And so a few weeks ago I took it to Call Lake and met my dad there, and we thought it was ready to go. And so did all the registration. It was like, oh, cool. We actually get to ride this. It wasn't just a really expensive paperweight. And it ran like crap. I mean, it ran like crap. Could barely go over 10 miles an hour. It was just bad. It's like still a fuel thing. And eventually, though, if you basically to spend the whole entire time you're riding it, you just sit there and goose it. Give it all the throttle let off. Get it, and you sit over and over and over. And it started going, and you get to where we were going 40 mile an hour. But you could not just keep it pegged. It would die. You couldn't go halfway. You had to. So it's a fuel issue still. And I was like, well, maybe I could run it. It got better and better and better as the day went on. And so then I brought it back here, and it's been sitting for a few weeks, and my dad's been on me to bring it back up, which is a very expensive endeavor. I'm like, maybe it works. So today I went and got the best gas I could find and mixed it up, put it in. There's a lake that I hadn't been to before over in Stroud. And it's actually it's small, but a really nice lake. There's nobody there, and had a beautiful dock right next to the boat ramp. So was no issue as far as backing up, pulling the boat off, driving it over to the dock, roping it up, going to your truck, pulling out. Pretty sweet little setup, actually. And also with nobody being there. But one tip I will give you, if you ever are involved in launching a boat in the water by yourself that you don't know if it runs, keep it strapped up on the trailer until you know it starts. That is, because guess what, buddy? If it doesn't, then you're just floating around. That's what happened. Because my dumbass backed it up, because it started fine when we did it. So I unhooked it, gave myself a little kick off the trailer, and pushed it out, and I'm just floating around and hitting that starter, and we ain't starting. I was like, oh no. If I run this battery out before it starts, I gotta swim it back over to the trailer. Oh boy. So luckily it did finally fire and got it started and got the truck out and then drove it around and it did the same thing. And I never actually got it to run, even with better gas. I never got to run it even as good as we did in call. So I got to take it back, but I got to get that bowl cut, dude, because that's the goal. You know, if I have this jet ski, I want to replicate the gentleman from the documentary series Tiger King that rode that jet ski. And he had a bowl cut, and he come pulling up with Eye of the Tiger playing. And that's what I want. But this thing's got to be running good because I got to do a couple donuts, little whoop-de-whoops. So I rode around for a few hours today. I'm sore from, my thumbs are sore from sitting there going back and forth on this throttle, trying to get it to, shoot whatever gunk is stuck in that carburetor out of it and let me fly around that lake like I'm supposed to. So it never happens, so we got to take it back. But either way, we'll get it. I didn't really have anything else. Oh, one thing I did want to talk about. There's a new show on Hulu that you probably have watched, but if not, I will recommend it. It's called The Patient. It has Steve Carell in it, and it has, Bimberbick Cumberbatch or whatever. I don't even know if that's him. It's got an actor you've seen before, but you won't know his name. It's not Steve Carell. And so what happens in this show is this actor that you have seen before was a psychiatric patient of Steve. Steve was a psychiatrist and had people come into his office. And this was one of the men that come into his office. And he had all kinds of issues and stuff about depression and all that stuff. But he never really opened up to Steve. And so what happened is eventually this guy abducted Steve Carell and chained him to a bed in a basement and then said, hey, we're going to start doing all my, I want to be your patient. I want you to help me, but I need to tell you actually what I am. And he's a serial killer. And I think it's kind of like, I don't know if it's based on a serial killer. It might be based on Son of Sam or something. It's like based in the 70s. It's set in the 70s or something. It seems. And even that might not even be true. But, no, it's not. It can't be true. It's set now, but the basement's from the 70s, I guess. The setting of the basement. And so, you can imagine how a script would play out that way, where a serial killer abducts his psychiatrist, brings him to his house, and chains him up to a bed in the basement, and then has them do their sessions as he's trying to resist the urge to go commit these crimes again. And it's that part's interesting, and then there's also the part where then he abducts another guy, another fella, throws him in the bathroom. And so when this guy's at work, he just works a normal job, the serial killer. When this guy's at work, he just leaves Steve Carell chained to a bed and a man in the bathroom that's all tied up, that can talk, though, and hear. And it was some restaurant tour guy that he had chained up that got mad at him because this guy's like a health inspector, which is funny. He's a big foodie. So, anyways, basically you have Michael Scott trying to tell this real skinny guy, not to kill people, and he's got to figure out a way to do it. And it's not that, it is an interesting show. It's a good show. There's a few graphic things in it, but not enough to push me away from it. And typically this guy kills just adult men, and he feels justified by doing it. And so there's a little Dexter element to it. And I'm on board with that kind of thing. But the best part of this is that the reason you have to watch is the thing that this guy gets comfort in is Kenny Chesney music, the serial killer. He's part of the Barefoot Army, and he's part of all these message boards and all these, um, different Kenny Chesney fan club things where they tour with, go like groupies or whatever, go watch Kenny Chesney. And then, he'll commit a murder when he's there, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe he's just so happy to be listening. And there's a really intense scene in this latest episode where his mom's there. She's upstairs, and she knows there's two people down there. But she's hoping that, and she knows he's killed all these other people, and knows he's a psycho, and knows she created that. But she's also hoping that Steve Carell can fix him. So she wants him to be there. And she comes trundling down the stairs and stops this guy, this murderer guy, from murdering the dude that was in the bathroom. And to calm down, the guy goes upstairs and cranks up Kenny Chesney. It's hilarious. I mean, I've always felt like if you listen to that kind of music, something's wrong with you. And I guess it's funny that they wrote that into this. So I implore you to watch it. Give it a try at least. It's decent. It's on Hulu, so it's probably free. But anyways, that's the news of the day, guys. I have a couple other thoughts, but I don't know if I want to get into them too much. Probably not. I'll get into them tomorrow. Do a show tomorrow. So that's what's happening. Kind of down today, but that's okay. Read my note again. Be positive. Love yourself. You can do it. You guys can all do it too. So with that being said, have an okay day. And don't let your meatloaf. Listen to Kenny Chesney.